If you are listening to this, you're going to be living, God willing, for quite a long time. So your money has to do certain things for you. Why not create security for yourself and your family?
So before we get into today's episode, I want to tell you about an amazing retreat that Michelle is having this year, October 4th through October 6th. In Denver, Colorado. It's called Money on the Mountain. Now, this is going to be a retreat for women who are financially single, currently financially single. So that doesn't mean that you are not dating. It just means that you are currently not mixing your finances with anyone, not commingling any funds. And this is going to be a safe space for women who are currently financially single to talk about building wealth through real estate. There's going to be conversations about paying off debt. There's going to be conversations about making financially bold moves as a single woman and how to grow your income and how to negotiate for a raise while staying in control of the conversation. Not to mention, there's going to be a conversation and a workshop on preparing for fertility as a single woman from a single woman's perspective. So if this is something that you would be interested in, definitely check out the link in the show notes or visit michelleismoneyhungry.com/retreat. Again, that's michelleismoneyhungry.com/retreat. And be sure to tell her that I sent you. Now let's get into today's episode.
You did not wake up today to be average. So why are we living that way? I truly do believe that God wants us to be wealthy. God desires for us to live our best. You can have everything that you want in this life. You can have the money, the family, the marriage, the business, the car, whatever it is that you want. You can have it. Wealth is your birthright. You deserve to be wealthy. These are the secrets of a money mogul, the keys to living an abundant life.
Hey moguls, welcome to another episode of the Secrets of a Money Mogul podcast. I'm your host, Jalesa Ann, and today I have a very, very special guest. She's going to be sharing some amazing information with us. I have Michelle Jackson from Michelle is Money Hungry. Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Jalesa, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you guys.
Yes, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to chat with me. I first want the audience to get to know you. So let's start with, who is Michelle?
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Michelle Jackson. I am a personal finance influencer, blogger, and podcaster. I'm also an author and write fun, smutty romance novels, which I love to joke about, but it's actually important to what we're going to talk about today. I also run a website and podcast about Colorado. I'm from Colorado, and I had things I wanted to share about my home state, and I got a lot of random questions about it. When I'm not doing all of the things, I enjoy going to the mountains, riding my bike, traveling, and meeting new people, and also helping to empower people with money and digital entrepreneurship so that they can create their best lives through digital entrepreneurship.
Wow, that's amazing. So how did you kind of get started as a financial expert? We'll start there first, and then we'll get to the author part.
Well, here's the thing. I was an expert in nothing when I got started, because there are a lot of different ways people find themselves becoming involved in the personal finance space. And for me, I became involved because I had a horrible money story. When I was in graduate school, and actually I should even kind of roll back. I've never, until recently, I've never had a positive experience with money. My parents divorced when I was young. My mother worked like a dog. She was a stay-at-home mom until I was 7 when my parents divorced. She ended up going to college. I remember going to classes with her and reading books in college classrooms and like coloring. So I remember learning that education was a good thing. And I also remember learning that money was hard because we were struggling. Mm-hmm. Fast forward many years later, and money still was hard. And I learned great work ethic, things like show up, your word is your bond, be ethical, do as you say, those kinds of things. But I never learned how to save money or invest or like those kind of conversations that people assume everyone has in everyone's family. That's just not the case. For those of you listening who might not know, I'm African American as well. And so I feel like there were some things about money that my mother had internalized that which she wouldn't have known, that also were taught to me. And so my money story was never as carefree and fluid as a lot of people kind of share online. What made it worse was when I was in graduate school. So at this point, I'm spending like a fool. I have no money skills whatsoever. And then my mom, and I'm in graduate school. Then my mom loses her job. At the time she loses her job, it's a recession in the state of Colorado. And it becomes painfully clear pretty quickly that this is different. Like this time this time is different. So before she would change jobs, not lose jobs, but she would just change a job because there was a period of time for many, many, many years where you could change jobs really easily. And when my mom and I talk about this now, we speculate, probably rightfully so, this was the time when things were becoming streamlined due to technology, where people weren't as necessary in a lot of the roles that my mom used to work in. But my mom also used to work in like social work type roles as well. So at the time that she lost her job, she was actually working in the airline industry. And I ended up having to support us on graduate school loans and Starbucks, because that was where I was working while I was in graduate school. So you can imagine how a bad financial situation got even worse. So finally, things settled down after several years. It wasn't like a year. It took several years for things to calm the heck down. I finally graduated from graduate school under a lot of stress, as you can imagine. And then it takes a year and a half for me to get a job, because we still had a recession at that time in the state. I get a job and it's awesome, except for the following. It's in international education, and we're under threat of closing because there are no students. So it's just like this, like one thing after the other. And so every time I would go to work, some of my colleagues who had worked at this center since its inception would talk about how it was going to close, like failure was imminent. So can you imagine, like, I've been going to grad school, supporting my mom and I on Starbucks money and student loans. I finally, after I don't even know how long, get a job, and every day I go to work and they talk about how the place is going to close.
Oh no.
It was just horrible. So the funniest thing happened though, like just things changed. And the government of Saudi Arabia started issuing out a phenomenal number of scholarships for their students, for their kids. And it wasn't just for undergrads, it was also for grad students and PhD level students. So students of all ages. So we went from famine to feast. Wow. And I ended up working that job for 10 years. And at the end of those 10 years, I wanted to quit because in education, people tend to work their jobs much longer because they love them. They're in it because they love what they do. And I was at the point where I was like, I don't love this anymore, even though I get to go hiking during lunch hour, because I would go hiking because I was just tired and I needed nature time. So we were by a mountain. And I was so frustrated because I was like, my money is a problem. Like, I can't even quit this job because I have all these financial problems. So that was around the time when, like I was blogging about money and things like that. And I was like, I've got to change my life. It's not normal to commute back and forth 2 hours each way. It's not good that I'm having anxiety attacks. It's really bad that I'm having weekly migraines, that I'm crying because of the anxiety. I'm depressed. and I have all these money problems, and I've been cleaning them up, but everything kind of came to a head. So this is a very long answer to your question, but I think it's important for the listeners that like things were crazy, but I'd been working on my money, and still I was like, you know what? I don't know that this is a good idea, but my body was breaking down. So I decided that it was, I'd been writing and sharing my story because I felt like it was so important. And then I had to leave my job. And so I became even more focused on sharing like money and debt and paying off debt and entrepreneurship. And that is my very long-winded, this is how I got into personal finance, because everything went crazy. And then I spent years cleaning it up. And as of this year, I'm in the last like 6,000, I thought it was 5,000, but 6,000 of my unsecured debt. And then literally I just have student loans and one other bill. And this is a huge win for me because I've changed through the course of this experience and journey. And I want people to be inspired and excited and understand that it's going to be up and down, but you can do it. So that is the answer, Jalesa.
Wow. Let me first just celebrate with you. Congratulations on being almost there with all your unsecured debt. Like, let me just celebrate that with you. Like that feeling, it's amazing.
It's been very emotional, actually. It's very intense how I'm feeling right now because I've never, as an adult, not had this type of debt. I've never been debt free as an adult. So I'm looking forward to that happening in the next, I think, 2 years. But this particular unsecured debt I cannot wait. Like it just represents a big, like sense of freedom for it to be gone. So I cannot wait.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that story because I think it's important for, I think most of the financial influencers that I've met are very open about their past with money. But I think if you're on the outside looking in and you see all these people, you think that they are, I don't know, somewhat different from you, or you feel like their story might be, their story's different, but we all go through things. We all have struggles. Like, and even you were blogging while still working on your money. Like,
and the blogging helped me with my money because it helped me build community, like not only through my blog, but with other bloggers and other people who were doing what I was doing. It helped me learn that I'm not the only person experiencing this type of situation, which was huge, actually. That was, I think, the biggest thing because initially I felt very lonely. Like, why am I the only person in the world having to deal with this? And come to find out, I am not the only person in the world dealing with this. There's all kinds of, black, white, green, whatever. Like I've met so many people in similar situations. So I think there's, it's so important for me to continue to share my story.
Yes, absolutely. And I know that one of the topics that I want to talk about today is kind of related to that story because I don't know if I have lived under a rock for the last 3 years or what, but I've been going to FinCon, which is the Financial Bloggers Conference. And somehow I just recently stumbled upon the whole FIRE movement. I don't know if I just missed that part of it or what, but
you just I feel like you've been busy with all that, like growing a human and keeping them alive. So I feel like you're busy.
Yeah. Okay, I'll say that. But I want to talk to you about FIRE, what it is, and your journey to FIRE. So let's start with what is the FIRE movement?
So you'll hear a lot of different ways that people will define FIRE. This is how I define it. There is the acronym, which is Financial Independence, Retire Early, or FIRE. Nowadays you'll see a lot of these quote unquote sexy stories where some good-looking millennial couple where the guy is bearded and thin and the girl is all crunchy looking have retired at 32 with $2 million in the bank, in their bank accounts. And while I do actually know a lot of people who look like that, I'm actually describing certain people that I know. I felt that it was important for me to, well, first of all, I was very attracted to the idea of financial independence because I've never experienced that actually. And for me, FIRE is a particular focus on financial independence to allow you to decide what you want to do. All of us are going to hopefully make it to the point where we retire, right? All of us are going to need money when that occurs. But where I think I hate to say an issue, but this is how I'm going to say it, where I have an issue or a concern about the FIRE movement is a lot of times when people hear of FIRE, they only focus on the R. So like people new to the idea, the concept of it, they always hit the R. Like, well, I like my job. And because this happened to me this weekend. I was talking to some guys at this place that I was staying at in the mountains, and they got really like really focused on the R. I'm like, you guys are focused on the wrong thing, which is the R is irrelevant. If you invest and save several $100,000, you're just hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay. You are operating at a level in the United States that far surpasses most people. Okay. Mm-hmm. For people who hit FIRE, the actual, like they hit what they think is their retirement number. That is so beyond what most people are operating at in terms of a financial focus that I think it really blows people's minds. But really, the idea is that you're saving 26 times your annual income, saving and investing, so that you reach the amount you need to retire on. That's it. That is literally the number. And then they factor in a 4% withdrawal rate so that you can, for your monthly expenses and so on and so forth. The interesting thing for me about FIRE is people who actually are doing debt repayment journeys or who are frugal, who've like started being really frugal or just learning how to do certain things, but doing it for less. They're very well positioned to transition into this FIRE focus. For me, I've spent how many years paying off debt? I still traveled when I was paying off debt. I still have Kate Spade bags. I still have Michael Kors. I didn't pay cash for those because I have a blog, so I got them for free. I just went to Breckenridge for the last, it's a ski resort for those of you guys who aren't familiar. I live in the state of Colorado. I just went up there for 4 days and just relaxed. And I run a digital business, so I could work wherever as long as there's internet. But I wasn't staying on, ski in, ski out, which is very expensive. I stayed at a super posh hostel. So I think where people get confused about FIRE or like intimidated is the one, they think that there's no possible way they could hit the number. 2, they might not have the financial education to figure out how they could. And 3, they might just not have the financial foundation to even begin to start. And I've done several interviews about this. I'm like, look, for me, I can now focus on FIRE because I'm not paying all these debts. So if, I'm not waking up and the first 5 hours of my day, that work is not going to debt anymore. So what do you do with that extra money once your debts are pretty much gone? So probably by about February, I'll have a fairly significant amount of freed up cash really to use towards investing. And so, either I could mess up my money, which I don't. I've just spent how many years cleaning it up, so that's not appealing. Or I can not appealing at all. Or I can invest it and grow it and make my money work for me. Again, my lifestyle is not going to change. My quality of life is really good. I already live my FIRE lifestyle, so a lot of times people get intrigued by this too because they're unhappy with their work, what they call work-life balance, or they don't like the job that they do. But I already quit my job, years ago. So I am already living the lifestyle that I want. I'm just focusing more on earning more money. So if you're curious about FIRE, there's a lot of podcasts. There's a lot of articles about it. And the other reason why I talk about it now, I joke that I'm somewhat reluctantly talking about it. But I felt it was important to show that there are people of color who are focused on financial health and well-being and growing their income. Because it's possible. It's just understanding the tools and resources that you can access to do that. Nowadays, we have so much information that really there's no excuse if you're wanting to change your life. We have information from the library in different forms of media. So you can, like the Denver Public Library, it's ridiculous to me, all the information I get. They have workshops, they have about money, about making things, so on and so forth. So if you're willing to check out books from the library, download free ebooks if you have Amazon Prime, if you are willing to go to YouTube to check out what you're doing, you know what I mean? Like to me in 2019, there was really no excuse not to be able to access information and do your due diligence, because you have to do what's appropriate for you. But ignorance is no longer bliss, because there's so much information to help educate you about money. There are apps that can help you save automatically, even small amounts of money. Like I've been paying small amounts of money over a long period of time, and it's changed my life towards paying off my debt. So likewise, I can assume that as I invest small amounts of money, it has a snowball effect, right? So I want to encourage people, if they become intrigued by FIRE, please don't focus on the R. Focus on the FI, which is financial independence. Being like, how would it feel to you to wake up and be like, I have so much money that I've saved up and I've paid my debts off, and I work for me. I work for me. Every day I work for me. And the other thing I do want to point out is, and actually I just had this conversation today, a few minutes before we recorded, for women in particular, we may find ourselves, and in particularly women of color, not just Black women, we may find ourselves helping family members out, right? So there are things that we have to think about financially so that we don't get messed up in the process. So I don't want, I know that I'm focused on FIRE, but I also know that it's likely that, no, it's not even likely. I know that I want to help my mother with her retirement because I personally don't think she has enough money. That's my point of view, right? That means that when I'm looking at my money, that I have to figure out how am I going to allocate dollars towards what my mom's retirement should be, right? I just spoke to a friend of mine who's Latina, and she's literally talking about the same thing. Just spoke to her. And so that's like when I'm figuring out my retirement money, retirement number for FIRE, that's factored into it. In fact, there's a African-American woman named Sylvia Hall who's already hit her number. Okay. She's already financially independent. She's still working. She's young. She's like 34. But she's working longer because she knows that she wants to make sure that her parents are okay. And so I think the last part of my comment will be this. I have no intention of retiring. So I have things that I want to do, business ideas that I want to share, and like financial goals that I want to achieve. And so in order to do that, I need to work. I'm just working for myself. And so that's been a big change in the last few years. So yeah, FIRE.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a mouthful. So just to kind of recap there. So FIRE is the Financial Independence Retire Early movement. And I'm glad that you mentioned, or that you're still speaking about it as a Black woman, because when I first found out about FIRE, I found out very quickly that the face of FIRE was white male engineers.
White tech bros. And I have a lot of lovely white tech bro friends who have hit FIRE. And they're so sweet. And they're so generous with their time and information. So I want to say, like, I know a lot of the faces of the FIRE movement right currently. And this is why I joked in the beginning that I'm reluctantly becoming a face of it, but I've decided it's very important that I show my face, and I'm like, I am Black. And this is important to me, and this can be achievable for you.
Yes. So That's awesome. I'm now considering myself a fire movement. I don't know what you call it. Fire movement. I'm aspiring for fire.
That'll work. And there's a lot of different spin-offs on the acronym. So some people are like, I'm FIRE, FIOR, which is the O would be optional retirement. There's fat fire, there's skinny fire. There's so again, this goes back to educating yourselves about what this is about. But at the end of the day, I want people to focus on the FI, which is financial independence, just getting your financial foundation together so that you are able to focus on a goal like this. Everyone has to retire. And so if you're a fairly young woman, you know what? You don't even have to be a fairly young woman. Whoever is listening to this, if you are listening to this, you're going to be living, God willing, for quite a long time. So your money has to do certain things for you. Why not create security for yourself and your family?
That's very true. So what are some of the ways that you are working to achieve FIRE? I know that you're paying down your debt, but what are some other things that you're putting into place?
So I think the most intense thing that I've been doing, but most rewarding, is building out different types of income streams. After experiencing myself issues with jobs, not necessarily my last one in terms of security, but just issues with having all my financial eggs in one basket, I am very aggressive about having more than one income stream. Again, it's 2019. It is not difficult to create a product and sell it online. It's just not. It's not easy, but it's not difficult. It just means that you would have to take the time and energy to do it, right? You might be sleepy because you might have to wake up earlier, but you can do things to bring in income so that you're not 100% reliant on your job. I think it's important to do something like this because it helps to build a confidence about you. So you're not desperate about your job because you're like, well, wait a minute, I'm building income in this other way. So for me, I have about 6 or 7 different ways I make money. So I now write ebooks. I was joking in the beginning about my smutty romance novels. I do write them. They're awesome. And I write them under a pen name, but I share it because I'm not like hiding who I am. It's just, a fun pen name. I have my blog. And so the blog makes income through like affiliates. I don't really do ads so much on my blog, but I'm open to that in the future. Events, I've created an event that's launching next fall. And so that will generate revenue. I have a course called Make Money with eBooks that generates revenue. I do freelance writing that generates revenue. I have affiliates of my course that generates revenue. So I have a lot of different things that I do. I also write nonfiction. So I joke about the romances, but I also write nonfiction, which is more in alignment with the money stuff that I do. So those books will be coming out in 2019. And sponsorships, actually. So with the podcasts, I also look for podcast sponsors in particular, especially for my Colorado podcast, because that tends to be a little easier to get sponsors for local podcasts. So yeah, I have several different ways to make money. That's a big part of my FIRE focus, partly because digital money, ultimately, if you learn how to do it right, it multiplies pretty quickly after you understand the logic. The other thing is just focus on lifestyle. So when I started paying off my debt, I will be honest, I was like, oh my God, like, am I going to be eating ramen noodles? And I'm the girl who is notorious for going into a store. If the store had no tags on anything, I would always pick the most expensive thing. I'm that girl. Mm-hmm. I have expensive taste, even though like, if you were to see me, it would surprise you, right? Because I don't really have like a lot of name brand stuff. I don't really like name brand things, but I like high quality items. So, what I did as I was paying off debt, I was like, okay, I know that I like going to the mountains. I talked about this earlier. I like going to the mountains and I like spending time there, but I cannot be, if I'm trying to do this, achieve this goal, I can't be paying ski in, ski out prices. And that's not going to work. So last weekend for 4 days, I was in the mountains. I paid a total of, I think, $225. That included everything. That was transportation. I didn't snowboard because my back was hurting. But other than that, that was food, transportation, accommodation. Sat in the hot tub, looked at the fire, met great people. So I'm really focused on how can I have this absolute same quality of life, but how can I do it for less? I still like nice quality things. So this year I have to change my winter boots. I can't be roaming around Colorado with crappy boots. It just doesn't work. So I'm getting sorrels or sorels. I'm not sure how they say it, but those are expensive boots, right? So I'm hoping that there's another sale, but even if there isn't another sale on those boots, I'm going to buy those good boots and keep them for probably 5 or 6 years, as long as they're good, So I really look at how can I get the best item for absolutely like the least amount of money and then maintain my stuff. Right.
And I love that you're wanting to you're making sure that you maintain your quality of life. That's very important.
Well, if you don't, you're not going to stick to the goal. Right. And so a lot of people want to pretend like they aren't who they are. So I know that I like truffle salt. Okay. Let's be real. I like truffle salt. I like traveling. I like there's just things that I enjoy and I don't want to not do them. But if I'm going to continue, if I'm going to have this goal, something has to give. And it could even be to save $20,000, right? Like your goal, if you're listening to this, could be, I would like to save $20,000. I've never had a savings account and that would be great to me. Well, you're going to have to make some choices. The thing is, it's for a season of your life versus forever, but you could choose for it to be forever. For me, I could live the same exact way that I'm living now. And it's very painless. Like it's great. It's a lot. It's so easy. It's great. Tomorrow I'm going to a holiday party. Awesome. I belong to an awesome organization. It's not an organization. It's like a meetup group. That meetup group is phenomenal. It's for bloggers. It's here in Denver. And every meetup is sponsored. So every time we have a meetup, it's at typically a really nice restaurant. The meetup organizer's phenomenal. She's a blogger as well. And the last one was sponsored at Morton's Steakhouse. Ooh. Oh, yeah. So it's like I'm still doing stuff. I'm still going out. I'm still dressing up. I'm still traveling. You heard it first. I'm looking at going to Scotland for the month of July. But how I go to Scotland and how I stay there might be a little different. And I actually know an FI guy there who's pretty well known. So I might hang out with him and his wife and let them show me around, take any advice that they want to share. And I'll be happy to take it, So I think the next thing is, we were asking, how are you facilitating this? I'm not ever, and this is personal, I'm not ever using another credit card in my life. So anything that I need, I just have to be able to afford the thing, right? So a lot of times, like, unless you're really good at managing your credit cards for if you're doing credit card churning, like you're working to get rewards points and things like that, and you're paying your card every month. For me, that's too much work, especially because I've spent years cleaning up a mess, a lot of it credit card related. And now I'm just used to buying what I need when I need it. And then we're done. Like I don't have an ongoing relationship with any kind of company. So I won't ever have a credit card again. I have no interest. I don't need it. I don't need the rewards. I don't care about the upgrades. Like that's all crap for me. So I don't care. Right. But for another person, that might be really important for them. So if that's important for you, you have to have a system in place so you don't mess it up. And then you have to look at other places in your life where you can make adjustments. Right. I shop primarily at Whole Foods. and Sprouts and Safeway. Why? Because I can walk to those grocery stores. I live walking distance to like 5 grocery stores, Trader Joe's being the other one. So I don't economize on my groceries in the way that people think. I still shop at these places. I just don't drop a full like check on this stuff, and I have a process. So those are some of the ways that I use to pay off a significant amount of debt. And so those are the ways that I'll use to invest a significant amount of money so that I can make more money, or so I can grow my fire pot. The next thing is I am going to be Airbnb-ing my place. So I'm about to do some renovations on my property going into spring because I cannot Airbnb it as it looks now. and it's way overdue. And I will be making money with that. So again, diversifying my income in as many ways as possible. And then finally educating myself, constantly educating myself. I don't know everything. Educating myself, connecting with the right people, hands-on. This weekend, again, I was speaking to people about fire, actually randomly at the hostel that I was staying at. It's beautiful. And one of the guys is like, he's like 24 and he's like, yeah, I've got a lot of money. And I'm wondering if I could just set it up and forget it and have someone else deal with it. And I told him, I was like, look, dude, if you do that, you won't have any money. You're going to live under a bridge because no one's going to care about your money as much as you do.
Yeah.
So that's just honest. If you don't believe me, you can Google stories about athletes literally living under bridges. I've read about 5 of those stories. And they had millions of dollars and they let other people manage their money. So I work very hard to educate myself so that is not ever going to hopefully be an issue for me. Oprah Winfrey knows where all her money goes. That's all I got to say. And she's a billionaire.
That is so true. And I always tell people that, like, not even me, like, you may think you trust me. My family, they'll be like, yeah, I'm gonna just let you handle all my money. No, you're not. Because I don't care how much you trust somebody. No one cares about your money the way that you do. So that education piece is so critical. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So what made you want to get into writing romance novels? Let's talk about that.
Oh my God. So last fall 2017, so every year I go to a conference. Both Jalesa and I attend a conference called FinCon, and it is a space for money nerds. And I was at that conference and I was feeling kind of frustrated because I was like, I'm not happy with where I'm at with my business. Like, I just feel like things need to change. And at that time, we were in where were we? Dallas. We were in Dallas.
Yeah.
And it was weirdly cold, by the way. But anyway, so we were in Dallas and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, my business, I'm not happy. Like, this isn't working in the way that I need it to work. So I decided that I was going to take a year off from travel. I have not traveled in 2018. Do not feel sorry for me because I have first world problems because I've been traveling since I was born. So literally I could take 5 more years off and probably have traveled more than most people in their lives.
Wow.
So I took a year off, and during that year, I decided to just try different things that I'd always thought about. Some were very specifically focused on personal finance in terms of my business. Others were business focused, but just a little outside of the scope of interest, like outside of personal finance. And one of the things I always wanted to do was write books and write romances. And I noticed that I was reading, I've always been a reader of romances. It's kind of like people who love romances love them. People who don't. Just like sci-fi that, like people are in the camp or they're not. So I've always been a romance lover. And I noticed that when I was reading my romances online in particular, that even though I had a Kindle Unlimited subscription where I paid $10 a month, and I could download quote unquote free books, throughout the month, I still was purchasing books too. And I was like, wait a minute, if I'm doing this, other people are doing this too. Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, I've always wanted to write a romance. Why don't I give it a shot? And I also wanted to write the initial type of romance, because I felt like Black women in the books that I was reading, and I read all genres, by the way, like I read several different genres, but for the books with Black characters, with women characters, I was like, we're deeper than that. We're more nuanced than that. We're not just the color of a deep bar of chocolate. And I felt like I wanted to explore more, right? And honestly, it makes good money. Like if you focus, you can make good money. So I wrote the book, and the first book made $540 in the first month. And I was like, holy wow.
The first book did?
Yeah. And I didn't market the book. So I didn't market this book. It made good money. And I was like, I'm hooked on this. And so ever since I started writing my books, I've been making passive income with it. I have noticed that during the holiday season, there is a significant drop. It's not just me. Like I'm in different groups with authors who self-publish, and people buy actual books, like physical books during the holiday season. And then after the season, they start buying their ebooks again. So I'm gearing up to really, I have all these different ideas, publish more, and two, make more. And so I think that the other piece to this, why write the book, one, I like the genre. I love the genre. Two, I hate freelance writing. I really hate it as a business model. A lot of people will end up quitting their 9-to-5 job when they're looking to be an online entrepreneur, and then they'll land into freelance writing. Like you could ask everyone, and they've probably, like, especially in the personal finance space, everyone's done freelance writing. It can be very lucrative, but there's a big problem with it as a long-term business revenue piece. And here's the problem. If there's a problem with the economy, you could lose your work, right? Companies can decide to have, instead of outsourcing for content, to have it in-house. You have to deal with editors. They may or may not pay you on time, which is just, so for me, I had several issues with freelancing. And also you just have to have a certain number of clients in order to kind of cover your butt, if you know what I mean. So I don't mind making money freelancing, but I was like, I need to make money in a couple different other ways so that I'm not hurt if there's an issue with this stream of income. And so with these books, I was like, even if there's a downturn, this would be someone's cheap pleasure, right? Because $2.99 for a book, people are going to pay that. 99 cents, they're going to pay that because that's a fun, simple thing to enjoy. And then finally, there's no limit to how much I produce. And that was the other thing about it that I really enjoyed. I can write as many books as I want. There's no one saying to me, Michelle, you have 34 ideas, but we only want 2 of them. Mm-hmm. I can do it. I can write a book a week and no one can tell me different. And so that's why I'm obsessed with it. I love it, love it, love it. And that's why I created the course, Make Money with eBooks, so that people, one, will get out of their heads about self-publishing in general. It's a course both for people writing fiction or nonfiction. And we have the internet. Why are people... I'm wondering why people wait on sharing their gifts, sharing their ideas, sharing their stories that they want to share, whatever they may be, whether they're fiction or nonfiction. So I love it. That's my another long-winded why, but that is why I love it.
Wow, I love that. And we're going to have all this information in the show notes for y'all. So the link to Michelle's course and all of the links to her social media and how you can connect with her. But Michelle, there's about 7 questions that I ask every guest that comes on the show. So I'm going to ask you those questions now so we can start to wrap up. But are you ready for those questions?
I'm ready.
Okay, so the first question, very basic, very simple, should I say? What is your favorite food?
This is going to weird people out. I love salad, actually. And it's so funny because there was this meme about Thanksgiving and how the West people love salad as a side.
Oh,
I love salad, and I've always loved it since I was a little kid. And I think the reason why is my dad was in the military, and we would occasionally go to the commissary, and I would get a salad with olive oil and vinegar dressing, which is, I don't understand where I got in this habit, because my parents actually, they're from the Midwest. They don't like uncooked food. So I just picked up this thing where I love salad. So yeah, that's my favorite.
I feel like that might be a Colorado thing because I've lived in Colorado for some years and, I've had some of the best salads there. So,
So yeah, I love it.
Okay. What is your favorite dessert?
Chocolate. I gained a lot of weight emotionally eating chocolate. I can't get enough of chocolate. Love it so much. Yeah.
What is one thing you want people to know about you that they cannot find on your social media or website?
I don't know. I was almost, no, you know what? I used to audition for a lot of things. So I was once in this is so crazy. I was once in an R. Kelly video as an extra, but it wasn't one of his pervo videos. It was actually a video filmed at Red Rocks.
Oh, wow. Filmed at Red Rocks.
Yeah, the storm is over now. It's a beautiful video, actually.
Oh, I think I know that song.
Yeah, and it happened right before the last 3 times before he got in trouble. So so I have to say a lot of disclosures.
I was in R. Kelly's video, but not that type of video, different video.
Yeah. There's a lot of problems with him in general. So.
Right. What is what fills you up or helps you to recharge?
Mountain time, period. So, like I said, I just got back from Breckenridge, and I need time in nature, a lot of time in nature. I'm finding the older I'm getting, the more I need it to stay balanced out. So, fortunately for me, that's not an uncommon thing here. Like everyone's kind of like that, but I'm not flexible with it at all. So I have to have time in the mountains. I like to go hiking and camping and, or just, snowboarding or just walking through the towns. Some of the towns are super cute and, so I need mountain time.
Very nice. What is one piece of advice? Oh, wait, not that question yet. One more question before that. What is one book, TV show, movie, or event that has changed your life and why?
Oh God. Okay. So each year is different, right? Each year is different. And this year, goodness, I want to keep this show light, but I feel like this is important. The election from 2 years ago was an event that has really lit a fire under my butt to make sure that I am taking care of myself. Even more than at any other time in my life. And I'm not 20. So as light as I like to keep this show, I think it's important to share that I have some concerns. And one of the concerns that I have is that a lot of people are underestimating how empowered people are in terms of how they live their life. Especially if they're your boss or what have you. So if for me, observing what's going on and all that kind of thing, regardless of where you stand, I would urge people to recommit in the new year, like not right now. If you're like at the time we're recording this, it's almost the end of 2018, but in the new year, take some time to really look at your money, look at your savings, things like that, and make sure your financial foundation is in order. Because no one is going to care about you and yours as much as you do. And in the last couple of years, just observing what I've been observing and that kind of thing, I feel that very deeply.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. And what is one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
You'll be okay. So it has never been easy. Like, even thinking about it, I'm like, oh my God. It's never been easy for me. Things have been, in my view, unnecessarily difficult in a lot of ways. But ultimately, I've come out on the other side of a lot of very frustrating experiences, like doing pretty well. And so I think that sometimes, like, you're in the moment and you're just like, why me? Like, why is it that this keeps happening? Or why is it that things aren't going the way that I want them to? And sometimes life is like that. Like, you can't predict why things are happening. You just have to have grace and learn from the experiences, and also just to be good to people. It sounds very trite, but I do believe in karma, and I believe that I'm sounding so woo-woo at the end of this thing. I believe that you reap what you sow, and that's biblical, actually. And I think that how you treat people and those things are important. So that's why, like, I don't believe in competition. I collaborate. I don't compete. I share what I can to help people. Whether or not you take action is up to you, but it won't be because I didn't share what I know. And so I would tell my younger self it'll be okay, and that you are meant for great things, and that it's an ultra marathon. Life is an ultra marathon, not a marathon. Everyone gives this whole trite, like, it's a marathon. I'm like, dude, it's not a marathon. This is not ending for a while. Okay.
Right.
Oh my God. Like, I'm like on mile 29 right now. Like, I'm past past the marathon. So it's not a marathon. It's a freaking ultra marathon. And just, you got to keep on keeping on, and to take care of yourself and focus on self-care.
Perfect. And then last question, how would you define abundance?
Ooh, I believe that abundance it's everywhere. I don't even know how I would define it. I feel like living where I can only speak for myself. I am in a constant state of abundance. I recognize it because I'm thankful already for what I have. I don't sit there and say, well, I wish I had a bigger place. I think to myself, wow, people wish they could have my little place where I live in the town that I'm in. I'll be walking down the street and I'll see an apple tree. And then I'm like, I'm fed if I'm hungry. I could pick that apple. Yes, people, I urban forage. I'm one of those people. I recognize food out in the world. So if there's a zombie apocalypse, I'm your girl, because I would be able to eat. If I'm looking online, I notice like free things out there so that I can have fun. Like, whatever you want, it's out there. It's just, one, you have to be open to receiving it. And I think that's part of abundance, is just recognizing that whatever you want is out there, especially in a Western country like this. But you have to be constantly thankful for what you have. Like, you can't be focused on scarcity if you're thinking about abundance. Mm-hmm. They cannot coexist. So that is almost like I need like a yoga class to really give you a good definition. So my brain will be all relaxed.
That's your short answer for that.
That's like the shortest answer you get in this whole episode.
Well, tell everyone how they can connect with you, how they can find you.
So I run a blog and podcast called Michelle is Money Hungry. You can I'm so sorry for the dings. Apparently I have something open and I can't figure out how to close this. Anyway, you can find me at michellesmoneyhungry.com, which is both the name of my blog as well as Michelle's Money Hungry, which is the name of my podcast. Same for my Instagram feed and at Mitch Loves Money for Twitter. I've also created a money retreat that will be happening in the fall of 2019 for women who are currently single to talk about single women's money and how they can kind of be assertive with themselves about what they want with their money and just kind of have a conversation around that. So keep an eye out for that. And you can find me there.
And y'all know I like to make it easy for you. So the information is all in the show notes. So you'll just be able to click. So thank you, Michelle, for coming on the podcast. I greatly appreciate you taking the time to just kind of pour into this audience and share your wealth and wisdom.
Jalesa, thank you for having me on the show. Let me run my mouth and share all the thoughts. And if you guys need anything or have questions, please email me at michellesmoneyhungry@gmail.com.
Perfect. Have a great day.